Pleasure of knowing Senator Elliott first through my dad when my father served in the Senate. Senator Elliott was in the House, and I got to know some of my dad's friends, and in fact they worked very closely together on what I think was one of the most significant accomplishments for both Senator Elliott and my dad, which was a funding mechanism that built senior centers throughout South Carolina. And Senator Elliott was the sponsor of that initiative in the House and brought it to the Senate and was having a little trouble getting it to the right place. And he went and saw my dad, who'd also had a passion for issues relating to our state's aging, and they worked together. And the result of that work was that there were, I think the number's over 20 centers built around South Carolina specifically for seniors. And then when I was elected to the House in 1998, same year you graduated college, but when I was elected to the House in 1998, I got to know Senator Elliott, and he was always very helpful to me on bills I was trying to get that had passed the House, trying to get out of the Senate. Was just always just a genuinely great guy. He's married to a girl from Camden, and my wife is from Camden, so our families knew each other well. And then we became roommates, I guess it was around 2006, and have just been very close since that time. We've always looked out for each other. Senator Elliott is just he's a very compassionate man. He's a brilliant man when it comes to numbers. He's one of those true statesmen that I think, unfortunately, in politics today, you don't find a lot like Dick Elliott. You find people too interested in throwing the Democratic or the Republican sword, and Dick Elliott was a real statesman. And just because he didn't speak a lot, you knew that when he did, it was straight from the heart. And he had an incredible knack for doing numbers. And I think that speaks to why he's been so successful as a businessman. In fact, before long they're going to change the name of Myrtle Beach to Elliott Beach. But he's been so successful as a businessman because he can just quickly do numbers, quickly put together budgets. And when he moved from Judiciary to Finance Committee several years ago, it was just a great asset for him to be on the Finance Committee, but it was great to have him there helping explain the budget process to newcomers like me that, we're still trying to understand how all of this came together. So we've enjoyed a close friendship and relationship prior to my service, even in the General Assembly, and he's someone whose friendship I will value for the rest of my life. We served together in the Senate for 8 years, and we shared a suite for 6 years. Senator Elliott is just one of those kind, true Southern gentlemen. He always had a handshake. He always would find time. Here's a guy that is incredibly busy with his Senate agenda, incredibly busy with his business back home, with his family, but he would always find time for constituents, for friends. If somebody came in from his district, he treated them like royalty. And I think that speaks to why he was so successful in getting elected and reelected, even as a Democrat in a district that was sort of trending the opposite way. So his contributions to our state are countless. His absence leaves a great void in the Senate. His wife, I tell you, they make a great partnership. And the two of them together, she would come up often. We'd have lunch together. She always looked after him. He always looked after her. You can tell they were sweethearts since teenagers, and it's just so fun to see that never changed at all. It's his sons, his daughter. It's a very close family. I come from a very close family, and I think that's one of the reasons that Senator Elliott and I always hit it off. He could be in the most important meeting, dealing with the most important issue, but if one of his children called or his wife called, that was the most important thing in the world to him. And I think that speaks as to who he is as a person, as a father, as a husband, as a public servant. Obviously, he's been successful in business. Perhaps he could have taken some of that success and built it into a different wardrobe. And I love Dick Elliott, but as the fashion craze kind of came and went from 2-button suits to 3-button suits to 2-button suits with side vents, Dick Elliott had 5 ties, and that was pretty much it. He was a very conservative guy. And I used to tease him. I'd say, Senator, certainly, maybe, I know the real estate market's a little soft, but maybe it's time for a new suit. And he says, my wife gave me this for our 10th anniversary. Ain't nothing like it. Ain't nothing wrong with it, so I'm going to keep wearing it. So I think he would do that more just to kind of have fun with us. But he, obviously very successful, and maybe one less rental property and a little more money spent on his wardrobe. But who am I to criticize? He's been so successful and such a wonderful role model. Also a wonderful role model for, and I still like to think I'm part of the younger group of state senators because there's so many that have served for 25, 30 plus years. But I think he really is a role model and really represents, as, again, what I would say the statesman that many of us want to emulate, and many of us, the person that many of us want to be, and why we chose to serve. And for that, I will always admire and respect him greatly. He was always there to fight for those that didn't have a voice. He never forgot, I think, his humble beginnings. I think that's important. A lot of people forget how they got to where they are. And Senator Elliott never forgot where he came from. Humble beginnings. He, recognizes the value that public education plays in South Carolina. And with all the debates going on about funding and tax credits and stuff, I tell you, nobody stood up louder and stronger as a supporter of public education than Dick Elliott, and you could always count on him. On top of that, you could always count on him to speak for the little guy, whether it be the small business person, someone who's unemployed, someone who doesn't have access to health care. I think, he was always a champion and a voice for sometimes those that don't have the most expensive lobbyists down at the State House. He could always be counted on to support the plight of the little man. And again, I think that leaves a tremendous legacy that all of us will remember for decades to come. With Dick Elliott, you got what you saw. A great guy, a humble man, a proud man, a compassionate and sincere man. And again, someone who has served his community and has served his state with great honor. And for those of us that had the joy and the honor to serve with him, it was just truly a great pleasure. And I still think of him as one of my close friends and mentors, and know that I can count on him to give me advice anytime I pick up the phone. Well, I will say one more thing, just to give, I think it speaks to the, I was just thinking, to the relationship between our families. Earlier this year, here in Columbia, the Capitol Senior Center, one of those senior centers that he and my father helped build the revenue stream for, renamed its building in memory of my dad, the late Isidore Lourie, Senator Lourie. And Senator Elliott, who obviously, like a lot of us as we get a little older, has not been in, maybe, has had better days with regard to health, but thank God he's doing good. But this was probably not a great day for him. But he and Ms. Elliott drove all the way up here from Myrtle Beach just to be there at that reception. He stood up and spoke, and he turned around and drove all the way back. And I'll never forget him for doing that. That was really just a real, just sincere and nice thing for him to do. But then again, that's who Dick Elliott is.